Stop. Remember a world before the digital noise? Welcome back to 1970.
In 1970, the street corner was more than just a place to wait for a bus. It was our social network, and at its heart stood the iconic red K6 kiosk, a bright red beacon defiant against the gray British fog. Often you'd find a small queue forming outside, a silent agreement of patience. When your turn finally came, you'd pull that heavy cast iron door shut. Suddenly, the roar of the city faded away. You were in your own private world, surrounded by the faint smell of old paper. Then began the ritual. You'd flip through the tattered pages of the thick directory, searching for a name. Then, the desperate fumbling in your coat pockets for those precious 2-pence pieces. You'd listen for the clink as they dropped into the slot, and only then would you start the slow, rhythmic dance of the rotary dial. Each number, a deliberate choice. In 1970, a phone call wasn't just a click, it was a journey. But the heart of the British home wasn't in the living room, it was here, in the hallway. Owned by the GPO, these heavy plastic boxes were more than just tools. They were a family member. If you had an ivory 746, you were truly blessed. And who could forget the party line? Sharing your connection with a neighbor meant you often heard their secrets before you could even dial your own. It was a time of shared lives and long, coiled cords. Goodbye rotary, hello buttons. In the early 80s, the slow whir of the dial was replaced by the sharp beep of the push-button phone. Everything became faster. We no longer had to wait. We just pressed, and we were connected. Then came the yuppies, carrying the ultimate status symbol, the brick. The Motorola Dynatac was heavy and expensive, but it didn't matter. For the first time, the hallway cord was finally cut. But for most of us, there was the pager, a tiny box that ruled our lives with a simple beep. It created a new kind of anxiety, the frantic search for a public phone box to call someone back. And inside the home, a new voice appeared, the answering machine.
Hello.
We began to curate our voices, waiting for that little red light to blink, telling us
and we will contact
somebody
you
wanted
upon
to
our
talk.
return.
As the 1980s faded away, so did the heavy batteries and the giant antennas. We entered the 90s, an era where technology finally started to shrink. It was a magic trick of engineering. Phones were no longer something you carried in a briefcase. They were becoming light, sleek, and for the first time, truly portable. Brands like Motorola and Ericsson were leading the charge, but a quiet giant from Finland was about to change everything. Then came the undisputed king of the British high street, Nokia. Specifically, the 3210 and the legendary 3310. These weren't just phones. They were practically indestructible tools of survival. You could drop them down a flight of stairs and they'd still work. The battery didn't last for hours. It lasted for an entire week. It was a reliable companion in a world that was rapidly going digital. But it wasn't just about calling. We were suddenly distracted by a handful of pixels. Snake. Pause. That simple, addictive game became a national obsession. You'd see people on the London Underground, heads bowed, thumbs flying, trying to beat their high score before their stop. It was the birth of mobile gaming, and we were all hopelessly hooked on that tiny green snake. And then there was the silence, the SMS Revolution. Before WhatsApp, we had 160 characters and a limited budget. Each text cost 10 pence, so every letter had to count. We invented a new shorthand language. See you later became SYL, and talk to you later became TTYL. We were learning the art of the thumb dance, tapping out secrets in the back of classrooms and on the top deck of buses. By the end of the decade, your phone was your identity. We swapped press-on covers to match our outfits and spent hours in the composer menu, trying to program our own monophonic ringtones. From the Spice Girls to Oasis, our pockets were finally singing. The 90s didn't just give us a phone, it gave us a voice that we could finally carry anywhere. Welcome to the new millennium. As the year 2000 arrived, the mobile phone was no longer just a sturdy blue Nokia. It was the era of style, where the flip and the slider became the new kings of the high street. Remember the satisfying click of the Motorola Razr as you snapped it shut? It was a fashion statement in brushed metal and neon light. We were carrying the future. But for the professionals in the city of London, the game changed forever with the BlackBerry. With its full QWERTY keyboard and that tiny clickable trackball, it earned a nickname, the Crackberry. For the first time, work followed us home. We were emailing from the train, the pub, and even the dinner table. The boundary between our public and private lives began to blur. Then came 3G. The internet was finally mobile, though it was slow and expensive. We spent pocket money on polyphonic ringtones and sent blurry pixelated VGA photos to our friends. Remember the crazy frog? That bizarre sound echoed through every school bus in Britain. We were pioneers in a low-resolution world, waiting for a single web page to load. And then, in January 2007, the world stopped. Steve Jobs introduced a device that would kill the keypad forever, the iPhone. It was a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator all in one. No buttons, just a screen that responded to your touch. In an instant, the Nokia empire began to crumble, and the age of the smartphone was born in the palm of our hands.
What's great
By
about
2010, we weren't just making calls anymore. We were scrolling. Facebook and Twitter had moved from our desktops to our pockets. Our telephones had evolved into pocket-sized supercomputers. We had survived the Y2K bug, embraced the touchscreen, and were now standing on the edge of a social media revolution that would change how we live forever. Entering the 2000s, the mobile phone became our primary lens on the world. With 4G, communication turned visual. We stopped describing our lives and started showing them. From the first Instagram filters to the explosion of TikTok, the selfie became the new global language. We were no longer just talking to each other. We were broadcasting our lives 24 hours a day. By 2020, the phone had become the remote control for our existence. In the UK, we didn't just call a cab, we Ubered. We didn't just order food, we Deliverooed. During the long months of the pandemic, those glowing screens were our only window to the people we love. FaceTime and Zoom weren't just apps, they were lifelines. The digital and the physical worlds had finally merged into one. Now, in 2026, we stand at the dawn of the AI era. Our phones no longer just wait for our commands. They anticipate our needs. They translate languages in real time, generate art, and act as our personal co-pilots through life. We have reached a peak of connectivity that our ancestors in the 1970s could never have imagined. But in this world of infinite data, we find ourselves searching for something more. Because in the end, perhaps the greatest paradox of technology is this: the poor think money is happiness. The blind think light is happiness. But for those of us who have lived long enough, we know that being able to return to our youth is the true happiness. Today, we've traveled 50 years through wires, signals, and screens. But the most important connection isn't the one in your pocket. It's the memories in your heart. Thank you for walking back through time with me.